In this video today, I'll show you how I prepared this lithophane for 3D printing and printing it out on my 3D printer. So let's begin. All right, and the first step in creating the lithophane is to prepare the photograph. So we will be using a free online tool that's called PixLR, and it's located at pixlr.com. And we have two options here. We have the PixLR-X and the PixLR-E. The PixLR-X is a simplified image editing tool, which is an easy way to prepare a transparent PNG file. The PixLR-E is a more advanced photo editor in the cases where you don't want your background to be transparent, but you do want it to be just a uniform color. The picture we're going to do today is rather complicated, and since parts of the main subject of the photograph are lighter in color, we'll want our background to be slightly darker than a transparent background. So we are going to use the PixLR-E. And so we'll click on the PixLR-E. We will open our image, and this is the image we are going to use. So the first step is we want to remove this background. So we are going to use the cutout mask tool, which is shaped like a little pair of scissors. And to start, we'll just use the AI Auto. And it did a pretty good job, except for it removed some of the shirt here of the lady. And so we are going to change to the draw mask. Our mode is going to be Add to Mask. We will adjust our brush. Let's make the size a little bit bigger. And then we're just going to draw the shirt back in here. And you see I overshot it a little bit, so I'm going to change the mask to Remove from Mask. I'm going to reduce the size a little bit. And now we come back in here and we can remove this background. There also seems to be a little something over here that I'll go ahead and remove. Okay, now as I mentioned, the hair of these people is kind of light colored, so if we leave the background transparent, that may pose some problems. So we want to add a little bit of color to the background instead of leaving it transparent. So in order to do that, we are going to add a layer. So we're going to come up here to the layer on the menu and New Layer. Then we are going to drag this new layer below the main image here, and we're going to make sure it's selected. Then we're going to come over here and we're going to change our color palette. We'll click on this top circle and we'll just choose a color here. And so I'll just choose something that's a light gray and click OK. Then I'm going to use the Fill tool. So I'll click on that. And then I'll click somewhere on the background. And you see now that filled with some color. Now you'll notice it looks like I missed some areas here above the shirt. So I'm going to click on the main image again in the Layers panel over here. And I'm going to come back to my Cutout Mask tool. And I'm going to remove Mask again, Remove from Mask. And we'll just color these in. And I kind of overshot, so I'm going to change to Add to Mask, so I can add these areas back in that I accidentally deleted. And then you can just be a little more careful and surgical in how you're removing. Okay, the next thing we need to do, make sure again your main image is selected. We're going to come up to Adjustment, Brightness and Contrast. And we're going to increase the contrast just a little bit, and then click Apply. Okay, so now we're ready to save the file. So we're going to click on Download. We want to make sure it's a PNG. In this case, we did not make a transparent background, so I'm going to uncheck Transparent, and then click Save. And then we will just save it to our hard drive. And now I'll show you how to do it with the PixLRX, where you want to leave the background transparent. And so we will select the same image, and we'll open it. And this is a lot simpler, you'll notice. So we're going to select the cutout first, AI Auto Cutout. Once again, it's removed too much of her shirt. So I'm going to come over here to the Draw Cutout. I'm going to make sure Keep is selected. Now I can increase the size here to make it a little easier. And we'll just draw in here to keep the mask. And maybe a little more up here. And then I'm going to want to remove the overshoot here that I did. And that looks pretty good. And in this case, we also want to come in here to Adjust and Filter. We want to come to Light. Once again, we'll increase the contrast a little bit. Click Apply. And then we want to save it. This time, we're still going to keep PNG selected. This time, we do want to have a transparent background. So we'll save this. And this one will be the transparent. Next, we are going to prepare the lithograph. And we are going to use another online site. And this is the web address right here. And then we'll click on Get Started. Now we want to click on the Upload. And we want to upload our image. And we want to upload the image that we created. We'll start with the one with the gray background. So this is the image that we created in the previous step. You can come to Edit here, and if you want to further adjust the contrast or crop it and that sort of thing, you can do that here. But in our case, we're just going to go on to Model. The shape of our model, we want to be an arc. Now we are going to have a puck light behind this. And so you want to make sure that the width is a little bit wider than the width of whatever puck light you're going to use. In this case, the puck that I'm using is 85 millimeters wide. And the holder that holds the puck is an additional roughly 5 millimeters. So we want that to be a width of at least 90 millimeters. And as you can see here, this is 128 millimeters, so that's fine. If it was smaller than what would need to be covering the puck behind it, you would want to increase the height until the width reaches that threshold. And then just leave the defaults for the rest of these settings. For the frame options, we select Frame, and once again, I'm just using the defaults for those, but you can adjust them if you want. The quality options, I just use the default. Now the way this is right now, you'll notice as I use my left mouse button to rotate it around, there's nothing on the back. Since it's curved, it can stand on its own. You could just print this out as is and then put it up in a window or something to have the light shine through the back so that you can see the picture in the lithoframe. But in our case, we want to put a puck light behind it. So we want to enable the lamp. Now I make a few differences. For the distance, this is how far the puck is separated from the lithophane itself. And so I like to reduce this to 35 millimeters. Now the fitter that I'm using is a puck. The light height, this is how thick your puck is. And so you need to make sure this value here is larger than the width, the thickness of your puck. And so my puck is about 22, 23 millimeters thick. And so I'm going to set the holder to 25 millimeters. The thickness, this is how thick of a wall the puck holder is going to have. So that's going to be 2 millimeters. So that's going to add 4 millimeters total to the width of the puck. Now the diameter, you want to set this to the diameter, the actual diameter of your puck. My puck that I'm using is 85 millimeters. And I like to steepen the angle a little bit, so I'm going to set that to 65 degrees. And then the connectors on the back, that is these right here. I don't need them so tall. That just wastes filament in my opinion. So I'm going to set the height to 5 and leave the width at 5. And so these are the different options. For the model options and image options, I just leave those as the defaults. And so this is our lithophane that's been prepared and it's ready to download. So I'm just going to click on the download button, wait for a little while it processes. Then I'm going to download the lithophane. And so now our lithophane has been saved. Now I want to show you why we did the light colored background or the darker colored background. I'm going to come back over here to upload. I'll delete this image and then let's upload the light colored image that we did. This is the one with the transparent background. And so we'll bring this one in. We'll look at the model. And you'll notice, because of the light background, part of the head here doesn't quite look right, and here. And so that's why I've chosen to slightly darken the background. And so that was the reasoning behind not wanting to just leave this a transparent background GIF, is because I was noticing it was cutting off part of the head here. Let's go back to the upload. Let's delete this one. And let's re-upload the one with the gray background. And we come to model. And you notice it's still set up with the puck. If we want this to be a nightlight instead of a puck, then we will not enable the puck or the light, and we will enable the nightlight. And so now you'll notice it has a little clip that you can use to clip onto the nightlight. If your opening here needs to be widened or added more in depth, you can adjust that here. And so that's how you would adjust this to just make a nightlight, where this would clip onto your nightlight instead of having a puck on the back of it. Okay, now I have got my Creality Slicer open. I have a Creality Ender-3 Neo 3D printer. This slicing program is very, very similar to the popular Cura program. So we're going to open the file that we created, in the previous steps. And here it is. So now we're ready to slice it. So we're going to want to make a few little changes. So I'm going to come up here and click on the profile settings. I'm going to start with the standard quality settings, but I'm going to make some changes. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the layer height to 0.12 millimeters. I'm going to change the line width to 0.45 millimeters. And you notice it also changed all these other wall widths. The wall line count, I'm going to increase to 10. That's probably overkill. But we want to have most of the lithophane be wall. And we want to make sure that print thin walls is checked. And then the infill density, we want to change that to 100. Make sure the infill pattern is set to lines. If you're not seeing all of these settings, you can come up here to the dashed lines and make sure all is selected so that you see all the different settings. So if any of these you're not seeing in either your Cura slicer or your Creality slicer, if you happen to be using that, then that's how you would be able to display all of these. All right, the next, I'm going to be printing this out with PLA filament. And normally that will use a 200 degree C temperature, but I like to up that just a little. So I increase that to 210. And then I leave the other temperatures the same. Next, we're going to come to speed. I'm going to decrease that speed just a little bit to 45 millimeters a second. The wall speed I'm going to set to 30. The top bottom speed I'm going to change to 25. And the travel speed I'm going to change to 80. And the initial layer travel speed I'm going to set to 45. And the initial layer travel speed I'm going to set to 45. All right. So now we've got those taken care of. Make sure you don't have any support checked. We're going to change our build plate adhesion to raft. The extra margin, I don't need that much. I'm going to reduce that to 5 millimeters. And so now we've made all the changes that I want to make from the default standard quality. So now I can come here to the pull down arrow again, and I'm going to create a profile from the current settings. And I'm going to call this one Lithophane. So the next time I want to print out a lithophane, I've got this profile already set up. Okay, now we can close the settings windows, and now we can slice it. And now when we can see here, this is going to take approximately 13 hours to print out, and it's going to use approximately 63 grams of filament. We can click on Preview, and then we can see how it's going to print out. So these scroll bars here on the top and on the bottom, or on the left, right-hand side and the bottom, this is going to show you your different layers. So if we drag this down to our very first layer and drag this to the left, so the bottom one is the progress of the single layer. So this is the first layer, and it starts by drawing in the first layer of the raft. Then we can come up here and we can input 2. So this will be the second layer. And so this is how the second layer is going to form. So it draws the second layer of the raft. We can see what's going to happen with the third layer. And if we pull this all the way, we can see that it's putting a third layer onto the raft, and so forth. And then as you progress this up, you can see what it's doing. And you can zoom in, and you can see how the walls, which are the straight lines, and the infill are working to fill in the lithophane part. And so you want that to be solid. You don't want to have any voids in that. So that's why we have our infill set to 100 and the wall line count set to 10. Most of what's printing during the lithophane portion here are the walls, because we've set that set to 10. But if any of the portions, like especially these thicker portions, if there were more than 10 wall width, which probably is not very likely, then it would fill that in with the infill. And so now we're ready to save it to the file. So this is going to save it as a G code. And so when you click Save, that will save the G code file to your computer or to a removable SD card if you want to save that way. I don't have a micro SD card plugged into my computer right now, but I can transfer that G code file to a micro SD card, take the micro SD card and plug it into my printer, and then print out the file. And here's a time lapse of when I printed out this lithophane on my Creality Ender-3 Neo 3D printer. I actually printed this out at 125% speed, which I set on the printer itself. So the speed values that I put into the profile for the Creality Slicer, those speeds are actually going 125% faster than those values. And the reason I do that is because you'll get a better quality doing it at 100%, but if you're in a hurry, you can speed up the process a little bit without really affecting the G code file that you saved from your slicer. And so this is printing out at 125% of the speed set from the profile when creating the G code file. And the results were still really pretty good. And once again, here is the finished lithophane with the puck in the holder behind it. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye!